Hello there everyone and welcome to a new review on the channel. And today we will be looking at Simon Says Celebrity Edition by Simon Lipkin and Penguin Magic. A very fun game that you can actually just buy to play as a game with your friends, but also a very fun mentalism piece for casual type performances that I think you are going to enjoy and your spectators as well, but one that will require a bit of work before getting a full mastery of it. So let's roll the intro and get straight into it. Perfect, so you decide to stick around, which means you want to learn more about Simon Says. So what is Simon Says? Essentially, Simon Says is a deck of celebrity cards made into a game that you can actually play with your spectator for real that will allow you to do some mind reading type effects and prediction type effects. So I think the best way for me to showcase this is to do a short performance of the main routine. Now this is not exactly the way that Simon performs it, but it's the way that I found most enjoyment from doing this routine. So you would introduce these cards to your spectators and you would explain to them what they are. You would tell them on every card, there's a celebrity, there's some banned words, so they have 20 seconds to describe to you the celebrity without using any of the banned words. And if ever there's 5 seconds left and they haven't managed to describe it, they can use the emergency word. If they manage to get the celebrity with the emergency word used, that's 1 point. Without the emergency word, that's 3 points. And that's essentially how the game would be played. So the way that I like to do this, I like to have the spectator cut the cards, and then I like to play the game with them for real. So let's say I have two spectators. I'd have a spectator here play the game with his friend. They would play it. I would then ask the other spectator to cut as well and play the game with his friend. So he would look at this and he would legitimately play this game with his friend, and then you would have some fun with them. You could interact. But then you tell them that you would want to play the game with them, but it would be unfair because you're way too good at this game. You're kind of a professional at it, and it's kind of not fun playing it with you because you're immediately able to know what anyone is thinking. But you want to demonstrate it to them. So you take the deck, you give it a shuffle, and then you even ask the spectator to give it a cut if they want, and then you spread it on the table. And then you tell one spectator, the spectator to your left, to take the card at the bottom. You instruct your spectator to the right to take the card at the top. And then you tell the spectator in the middle to take that card and place it in his pocket. Or if you don't have another spectator, one of them to place it in the pocket. You then ask one of the spectators for their phone. You take the phone, you open up Safari, and you input a prediction. Okay? So then you start playing the game. You tell what we're going to do is we're going to play the game without speaking. So I'm going to ask you questions and I want you to just answer in your mind without speaking it out loud or without nodding or anything like that. So is your character male or female? And I will actually show you to this so you can maybe play through the camera. Look at that. So is your character male or female? Okay. Is your character alive or dead? Okay. Is this someone that you've seen their work or not? Okay, this is someone that has played in black or white pictures, am I right? In comedies? Okay, I see that you're trying to hold it in because I'm on the right path. Are you thinking of Charlie Chaplin? And then of course they would say yes because that is who they thought of, Charlie Chaplin. Then you would proceed to play it again with the other spectator. You would start playing it, but this time you tell them, I don't even want to ask you questions. I just want you to think of the celebrity, and then you'd be able to just mentally tell them to think of a movie, for example, or a famous character that they've played. Let's say they're thinking of it. You say you're thinking of Tomb Raider, right? But not the recent Tomb Raider, the older one. You're thinking of Angelina Jolie, and of course you can show that that is Angelina Jolie. And then for the last one, you would actually say that for you, we're actually not even going to try this because you guys shuffled the decks at multiple times. You've cut the deck at multiple times and you placed a card in your pocket that you don't even know. But you remember I actually asked you for your phone from the start. Can you open up Safari? They're going to open up Safari, and on Safari is going to say Bruce Willis. And then when they take the card from their pocket and they look at it, you predicted that they were going to end on Bruce Willis. And this is the main routine for Simon Says by Simon Lipkin and how it would play out. I hope that you enjoyed that. So now that you know what this is, where do you buy this, how much does it cost, and what do you get? So you can buy this directly from Penguin Magic or most of your favorite magic dealers. Some of them have it, some of them don't. I got mine from ALAKAZAM Magic, but there are some other stores that do actually stock this. Even my local magic store does have this in stock, so you can take a gander over there. It will set you back $29.99 USD, which is around 40 Canadian dollars. And what you will get with your purchase is this typical Penguin packaging, the hard shell box with the magnetic flap. Inside on the flap, of course, you're going to get your instructional link, which is around close to an hour of instructions of how this deck works, how you're supposed to use it, etc. And then you're also going to get your deck and box, which is very well produced. The deck is very well made. It actually looks like a game and it can play like a game. And it's extremely well crafted. The stock of the cards, everything should last a very long time with care. So now that you know all of this, let's talk now about difficulty. So how difficult is the effect to perform? The effect is not as difficult to perform, but it is a bit tricky to learn. Because the way that I do it is I do it like that because the marking system on the cards is pretty easy for certain cards and really ingenious. But for some other cards, you will have to learn the marking system because it's not the easiest one. Even me, I have some difficulty with one of the marking systems, which is why I adjusted the routine because of the way that I think. I easily found a way to do it without having to read the marking system, the main marking system. I'm using the alternative marking systems to know all of the identities of the cards. So the way that I constructed the routine for myself avoids me from needing to use the marking systems. I'm still going to learn them, but those do take a bit of time to learn because yes, they're intuitive, but you will need to be familiar with the deck. So that's not to say it's something incredibly hard that requires a ton of memory work, but it will be something that requires you to maybe sit down with a deck for around 30 minutes and just constantly go over it and learn until you make no mistakes. And once it's inside your head, you're not going to forget it, but it is something that you're going to keep in mind. The second thing difficulty-wise is because the colors that they've chosen for the back of the card, which is black and kind of dark gray, at certain angles and certain lightings, the markings cannot be read. For example, here, yes, I can read the markings, but if I were to spread the cards just a bit further, I cannot see the markings because of the light and because of the back of the color. I found that even in my kitchen, when I wanted to perform this for some guests, I had to use some other ways to get the information because the way the lighting was shining on the back of the cards wasn't really good for me to see the markings, was a bit too bright. So maybe you'll have to look a bit at that. Maybe my kitchen lighting is way too bright, but even here, at this angle here, I cannot read the markings because it is way too bright because of the light up there and the light up there. The markings become invisible because of the way they are. So that is something to keep in mind. For example, here, I can still not read the markings. Here, I can start to read them, but I can still not read the markings because of the lighting. But here, I can. So it is something to keep in mind. Maybe if they do another edition, maybe having a different back blend of color would be cool. But again, it's not too difficult, and I'm sure that these lighting conditions can be fixed relatively easily at the events, because I know most of the events we perform at don't have two sources of lights or extremely bright lights, so that can be fixed, but still the marking system will require a bit of practice. Now let's go into practicality. So how practical is this? In order to perform the Simon Says, you're just going to need your deck. So with this deck, you're going to be able, with the performance as you saw, you can squeeze a good 3 minutes out of this if you want, 3 to 5 minute routine out of this, because you have the game that the spectators play between each other. That's going to be a lot of fun and a brilliant way to start the premise of the effect. And then you can do 3 revelations that are made in complete 3 different ways. One is playing the game with the spectator mentally, one is a direct mind read, and one is a prediction. So if you build all of this together and you take your time and squeeze it out, you can even get 3 to 5 minutes out of this routine, which is nice from a single deck of cards, but you will need to carry around the deck of cards in order to perform these routines. In terms of reset, the reset of the deck will take a bit of time if it goes out of order, let's say. So that is something to keep in mind. There is a crib with you at all times on the back of the box that will allow you to do the reset relatively easily. But if ever there needs to be a reset, it will take a bit of time. But don't worry, if you know the main marking system, the one that does require a bit of practice, you'll still be able to use the deck shuffled. But if not, I do advise, if you want to get the best out of this, to leave it the way it is or reset it if ever something happens in between performances. In terms of inspectability, the deck can be fully inspected. The marking system is extremely smart. I won't go too much into why, but it is extremely smart because even if the spectator were to look at the back of the cards, they will not see what they expect to see. It's ingenious the way it's thought out. So I won't say too much, but yes, I would feel free to give these out to a spectator to inspect them. They could, go through it. I wouldn't worry much about anything. In terms of table, I do think this is best done with a table, but you don't necessarily need one. You could easily just do this standing up and handle the deck yourself and then put it away. But I do think if you have a table, it makes everything much easier. And in terms of angles, this can be performed 360 without any issues. Where would you perform Simon Says? Simon Says is something that definitely excels in close-up scenarios because of its game type shows. So something at a wedding, table hopping, restaurants, or anything casual at home, at a friend's home, at an event at someone's home. This type of effect works really well in close-up type mix and mingle scenarios. It will work very well, but also in some parlor shows, I think this could play well because you do play to multiple spectators. You can invite 2 spectators to play on stage. They go back, then you play with 3 spectators around in the audience. It could play big, so I do see it playing those type of scenarios. So now that we've said all of that, what are the positives and negatives of Simon Says? Let's start out with the negatives. There's 2 distinct negatives. One is that the main marking system, yes, is super genius, but it will take a bit of memory work, if you want to call it that, and a bit of time to learn because it is not one that you just read off of the cards. You're not going to be able to look at the back of the card and see that it's, for example, Leonardo DiCaprio in an instant. You will be if you practice it, but at the start it will be a slow curve in order to learn it. Second of all is the lighting conditions, is that you'll see that in certain lighting when it's too bright, the design of the back of the cards doesn't play too well in terms of visibility. Maybe my eyes are just shot, maybe I have the worst eyesight ever. That could be a thing because mine is pretty bad, but even then I think that the chosen back design with some lighting reflections isn't the best choice because it incapacitates you in order to see the markings. In terms of positives, however, it's a relatively good price for what it is. The routine is fun. There's a ton of other routines as well. I didn't go over that, but there's a ton of other routines that you can do with this. It's really well designed, well produced, well explained. There's live performances. There's a ton of stuff that's good about this that will hit if you like what you kind of heard here or saw in the trailer. Essentially, would I recommend Simon Says and what do I give it out of 10? I think if you enjoyed what I've mentioned up until now, even though the small tidbits of criticisms that I have, I think this deck is very fun, and I think that it will be really nice to see what other versions he comes up with, whether it be superheroes, movie characters, etc. I think it would be a very fun thing to have, even if you just have these around your house to play as a legitimate game and then do some magic, it would be worth it. I do recommend this. I think it's fun if you like celebrities and to do stuff with celebrities. I think it's fun. So I'm going to give this an 8.5 on 10, and I do recommend it. So that's all I have to say about Simon Says. I hope that you enjoyed. If you have any other questions, leave them down below. If not, see you in my next review. Bye.